The jungle of Viridia Prime was a place most sane travelers avoided. The trees grew as tall as starships, their roots curling like ancient serpents through the earth. Everything here was alive, and most of it wanted to eat you. Tom Corden knew that much. He also knew that his alien companion, Syrah, was far too curious for her own good. "Stay close," he called, brushing aside a curtain of broad, glossy leaves. "My scanner said there's movement up ahead." Syrah padded lightly over the mossy ground behind him, her violet skin almost blending with the blooms around her. Her species, the Nereians, had a knack for reading plant life. She could tell whether a flower was poisonous or harmless just by scent. Unfortunately, her curiosity often outweighed her caution. "Movement doesn't always mean danger," she said in her lilting voice. "It might be something beautiful." "Beautiful things here usually have teeth," Tom muttered. The air was heavy with humidity, thick with the smell of pollen. Strange, bird-like creatures flitted between the branches, their wings shimmering like glass. Somewhere deeper in the jungle, something let out a low, vibrating call that made the ground tremble. They came into a clearing, sunlight piercing the canopy above. At its center stood a single plant, if you could call it that. Its thick, emerald stem rose from the earth, topped with a massive bloom at least 3 meters wide. Its petals were blood-red, lined with barbed edges, and the center was a deep, shadowy pit. Syrah gasped. "A Vora bloom," she breathed. "I've only seen illustrations in old Nerean records." Tom eyed it warily. "And those records, did they mention it being dangerous?" Syrah crouched, her eyes scanning the bloom. "It's carnivorous, yes, but it usually feeds on large insects. It shouldn't be a threat to us unless—" The plant moved. Faster than Tom could blink, 2 of its petals snapped together like jaws, and a thick, vine-like tendril lashed out, wrapping around Syrah's waist. She yelped as it yanked her towards a yawning maw. "Hey!" Tom shouted, lunging forward, but the tendril was already pulling her in. Syrah's hands clawed at the vine, her legs kicking, but her strength was nothing against the plant's grip. In seconds, she was swallowed whole, vanishing into the dark pit of the bloom. The petals sealed shut with a wet, sucking sound. Tom froze for half a heartbeat, his stomach twisting. Then instinct kicked in. He dropped his pack, pulled his plasma cutter from his belt, and charged. The thick stem loomed in front of him, pulsing faintly as if something were being dragged down inside it. "Hang on, Syrah!" he shouted, slashing the cutter through the first vine that lashed out at him. The plant screeched, an awful, grinding sound that vibrated through the air. More tendrils whipped towards him, but he ducked and rolled, slicing through them one by one. The petals shuddered, clamping tighter. Tom climbed onto the base of the bloom, driving the cutter into the thick green flesh. A hot, acrid stench filled the air as the blade burned deep. The plant thrashed, but Tom held on, cutting a jagged opening through one of the petals. Inside was a tangle of fibrous tissue, slick with glowing green sap, and there, tangled among it, was Syrah. Her eyes were wide, her hair plastered to her face with sticky fluid, her arms pinned against the sides. Tom reached in, ignoring the slime, and grabbed her under the arms. The plant tried to pull her back, but he planted his boots against the petal's edge and heaved with all his strength. With a final wrench, she came free, collapsing into his arms as they both tumbled to the ground. Syrah coughed, spitting out a mouthful of bitter sap. "I told you, it only eats insects," she wheezed. Tom stared at her. "Yeah? Guess you look like a particularly tasty one." She managed a weak laugh, but it was cut short by another shudder from Plant. It was already beginning to close the gap he'd cut, tendrils writhing angrily. "Time to go," Tom said, hauling her to her feet. They ran, crashing through the undergrowth as the Vora bloom's tendrils whipped after them. Only when they reached a narrow ravine, the plant unable to follow, did they finally stop to catch their breath. Syrah leaned against a moss-covered rock, wiping sap from her face. "That was reckless," she admitted. "You could have been swallowed, too." Tom gave her a look. "Reckless? You're the one who walked right up to a giant man-eating flower." She smiled faintly, though her eyes were softer now. "Still, thank you, Tom. You didn't hesitate." He shrugged, trying to mask the adrenaline still pounding through him. "Couldn't just leave you as plant food." Syrah's gaze lingered on him for a moment longer before she turned back towards the jungle. "Come on, let's get out of here before you have to save me again." Tom smirked. No promises. They moved on, the danger fading behind them, but neither could shake the memory of how close it had been. Somewhere in the depths of Iridia Prime, the Vora bloom waited, its petals closing, its hunger far from satisfied. And Tom knew that next time, the jungle might not give them a second chance.